Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to the Gaza Report. Every single night, we give you latest updates of Israel's war on Gaza. You know, some people say it's a war in Gaza. Some people say it's a war against Hamas. Some people say it's a battle against terrorism. But the truth is, it is a war on the Palestinian people, and specifically the Palestinian people in Gaza. And so every single night, we give you updates, we give you information, we give you reports, we give you numbers that help you to understand exactly what corporate media doesn't want you to understand, and give you an analysis that mainstream outlets don't want you to have. And that is that this is a genocide against the Palestinian people. And so we cover it every single night. And tonight is no exception. We begin, as always, with the numbers. At least 34,683 Palestinians have been killed, and 78,018 Palestinians have been wounded in Israeli attacks on Gaza since October 7th. The death toll in Israel from Hamas's October 7th attack stands at 1,139, with dozens of people still captive. So we want to keep those numbers in your brain. I don't say this every night, but it's important to know that those numbers are conservative estimates. There will be people in the world who will try to convince you that these are just made up numbers, or that Hamas, just gives numbers, and we're idiots who just believe whatever Hamas says. Well, it's important to understand that Hamas doesn't control the Gazan Health Ministry, but also that the Gazan Health Ministry is entirely in line with other accounting agencies who use different mechanisms of accounting, or sometimes the same. And in previous wars, the Gazan Health Ministry has been within 4% of the UN and other entities who have also gauged the death count. So there's no reason to believe that these numbers are made up. And if you are to believe that the numbers are low or off, that you should believe that they're too low. You should believe that the numbers are too low. The numbers are probably closer to maybe 42,000. There's about 8,000 people tragically who remain under the rubble, and they have not officially been marked as dead, but no one has seen them in 6 months, and their bodies lay under the rubble of the Gaza Strip after the devastation of the Israeli military's assault on Gaza. So in light of that, these numbers are relatively low. Not the death toll is low, the account of the death toll is low. Where it's conservative is probably a better way of putting it. Because again, right now, the official number is 34,683 for people dead, 34,683, which still, even if it were less, even if it were 10,000 less, you're still talking about tens of thousands of people. 2/3 of that number are women and children. As of now, more than 1% of all of the children in Gaza have been killed. More than 1% of the child population in Gaza has been killed. And that's only human death, which is obviously the thing that's most precious. But when we talk about buildings, when we talk about infrastructure, when we talk about waterways, every kind of measurable or reasonably measurable index of civil society, of modernization, of civilization, has been destroyed. I'm talking about schools, I'm talking about art houses, I'm talking about music, I'm talking about masjids, I'm talking about churches, I'm talking about museums, I'm talking about graveyards. I mean, any single thing that holds on to Palestinian memory, Palestinian identity, Palestinian ideas, Palestinian culture, anything, it's been taken. It's been absolutely taken. And so this is part of the tragedy, and in some ways the under-explained or under-analyzed tragedy of what's happening in Gaza, because what you're seeing is not just the erasure and devastation and destruction of people, but you're seeing the devastation and destruction of a culture, of a society, of a memory, of a possibility. The thing that makes this make sense, though, for Palestinians, in terms of the struggle, is that they've always been under these odds. They've always been under this pressure, and Palestinians have always continued to resist. They've always continued to fight. They've always continued to struggle. They've always continued to exhibit sumud, or steadfastness. And that makes all the difference in the world. But let's talk about some other things that have happened last night. Again, as that death toll continues to go up, we have to look at specific instances to give you an understanding not just of who's dying, but how. Last night, Israeli air attacks killed at least 10 Palestinians. So at least 10 Palestinians were killed in Israeli air attacks. These were in Rafah. Rafah is this a city in southern Gaza. It's absurd. Anyway, at the same time, Hamas fired rockets at the Kadam Abu Salam crossing. That's the Emirates crossing, I believe. No, that's not true. Hamas fired rockets at the Kadam Abu Salam crossing, killing 3 Israeli soldiers and wounding 11 other Israeli soldiers. Let's talk a little bit about negotiations, because last night we talked a bit about the failure of negotiations to move forward. There was some optimism that somehow we'd get a different outcome this time. I'm not sure why, but there was considerable optimism. And of course, the optimism is linked to the fact that people believe that these are 2 good faith entities coming together. Even if they disagree, they're coming together to solve a problem or meet in the middle. That has not been the case. The latest round of negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza have ended. They were in Cairo, and the biggest issue was they both entered the negotiations with non-starters. Everybody enters negotiations with non-starters. This is a thing that we just have to have, right? For Israel, that thing might be, say, hostages. For Hamas, that thing might be a ceasefire. Now, that seems like a manageable situation, right? We'll give you the ceasefire if you give us the hostages. That way, each of our non-starters are addressed, and we don't have to fight over things that the other party has said is a non-starter, right? You just give up the hostages, ask for a ceasefire. Everything else we can work out. Problem is, not on Hamas's side with regard to this issue. By the accounts that I'm hearing and reading, and by what Netanyahu himself has said, any idea of a ceasefire will not prevent an Israeli attack on Rafah, a ground invasion in Rafah. So basically what Netanyahu is saying, and has said explicitly, is, I'll do a ceasefire as long as we can still invade southern Gaza. It's like, well, a ceasefire. That's not a ceasefire. But that's been the approach that he's taken. Another thing that has happened, and you're talking to an employee of Al Jazeera as I tell you this. Now, I feel the desire to say that, and the kind of ethical need to say this, but I'm a host on Al Jazeera and up front. Anyway, the Israeli cabinet has voted unanimously to close Al Jazeera's operations in the country. The communications minister says the orders against the network, quote, will go into effect immediately. And of course, Al Jazeera is saying correctly, I believe, that this is a criminal act that violates human rights. But that's where we are. That's what it is. The question is always why. The question is why. Why is it so important for Al Jazeera not to be here? That's obviously because we're telling different stories. We're pushing back against the dominant Hezbollah narrative. But what they'll say is it's a national security issue. They'll say that Al Jazeera is a terrorist organization. And so by labeling people terrorists, by smearing them, it makes it very easy to get rid of them at the legislative level, which is what's happening right now. Anyway, that is the Gaza update for now. I have more. We're going to do office hours in a few minutes. And so jump on over to office hours. We'll be on in about less than 5 minutes. And I'll be taking your questions and answers tonight. So whatever you have to ask me, go to office hours or Marc Lamont Hill. The room's open, and we'll have that conversation, y'all. All right, family. Love y'all. I'll see y'all later. Peace.